In this video, we are going to revise Learning Unit 1, Bank Reconciliation of Accounting 1B. But before we start with our revision, let's pose a question. Your cousin has started a small business and per her accounting records, she has a debit bank balance of 15,000 rands. However, per her banking app, she has a credit balance of 13,800 rands. Will you be able to explain to your cousin why there is this difference in the two balances? Let's go through Learning Unit 1 and see if that will help you to explain to your cousin why there is a difference between her records and that kept by the bank. In our textbook, if you want to follow along, we're going to be working through pages 1 to 26 of your Accounting 1B textbook. Now, per the module outline, there are certain outcomes that you can be tested on in Learning Unit number 1. And it's always important that you should align your efforts while you are studying to these learning unit outcomes, because these are the key takeaways from this particular learning unit. Now, the learning unit outcomes are divided into two broad categories. First up, we want you to know your theory, and secondly, you need to be able to complete application questions. This learning unit forms part of your first semester test. And this first semester test is covering Learning Units 1 and 2. And if you are a distant student, then this will be what will be covered in your task number 1. There is also a second video that will help you to revise Learning Unit number 2. We're still dealing with the sole trader from first semester. And the sole trader then enters into multiple cash transactions on a daily and on a monthly basis. They could have cash sales, cash payments, they could receive cash from a debtor. I wonder if you can remember from first semester in which journals will the sole trader record these cash transactions. The sole trader then will record on a daily basis the cash receipts into the cash book receipts and the cash payments into the cash book payments. And at the end of the month, these two cash books will then be posted to the bank account in the general ledger. At the same time, the sole trader will also have a bank account. And in this bank account, they will deposit all their spare cash and they will make payments from the bank account. And this bank account can be held at any of the big South African banks. Now, the bank will also be keeping a record of all the cash that is received from this customer or from the sole trader and any payments that is made by the sole trader. And the bank's record of all the cash transactions, we call that a bank statement. So in theory, we would assume that the records that is held by the bank with regards to the cash transactions will be equal to the records that is held by the business in the cash book receipts and in the cash book payments. But on a monthly basis, we are going to check the bank's records against the records held by the business to ensure that the record kept by the bank of the cash transaction is in fact equal to the records kept by the business. And what we have to remember here when we do this comparison is that the records kept by the bank, so this bank statement that I'm showing you on this side of the screen, this is prepared from the perspective or the viewpoint of the bank. where the cash books and the general ledger, those are prepared from the perspective of the viewpoint or the viewpoint of the business or the sole trader. And this is a really important point that you have to remember throughout Learning Unit 1. Otherwise, you will really struggle to do a reconciliation. So let's just make sure you got that point. So the bank prepares the bank statement, and they prepare the bank statement by recording all the transactions from their viewpoint. The business or the sole trader prepares the cash books and the general ledger, and they prepare these cash books and the general ledger from the perspective of the business or the sole trader. Another way we can look at it, it is nearly like we are looking in a mirror, where what the bank will be reflecting will be the opposite to what the sole trader will be reflecting in their accounting records. So it is like a mirror image where we see the same transactions but from an opposite perspective. So let's just make sure you understand what that really means. So on the bank statement, if the bank statement shows that you have a debit balance, so here a 3,000 rands debit balance, that actually means that you are currently in overdraft, which means you have been spending more money than what you have cash in your bank account. But a debit, typically in the general ledger, is not an overdraft, but it's actually an asset. So in the general ledger, we are not going to reflect this on the debit side in the general ledger bank account, but we're actually going to show it on the credit side to reflect that we are in fact in overdraft. So can you see the difference? On the bank statement, a debit means an overdraft, where in our general ledger, a credit means it's an overdraft or a current liability. So once again, the bank statement is done from the viewpoint or perspective of the bank, where the general ledger is done from the viewpoint or the perspective of the sole trader. So when we now do this monthly comparison of our cash books to the bank statement, we have to keep this in mind. So when we compare on a monthly basis our cash book receipts to the current month bank statement, we are going to look at the credit column of the bank statement. Because remember again, this bank statement was done from the viewpoint of the bank. So you're going to compare your cash book receipts to the credit column of the bank statement. And when we do these comparisons, we're really only interested in the bank column of the cash book receipts. Because you'll remember from last semester that the bank column is the primary column of the cash book receipts. And this column is the one that has to match up to the credit column of your bank statement. So the bank statement then is done from the viewpoint of the bank, where your cash book receipts is prepared from the viewpoint of the sole trader. We're also going to compare the cash book payments to the bank statement, and this time around we are going to compare the bank column in the cash book payments to the debit column of your bank statement. So again, it is the opposite to what we are doing in our general ledger. So we are going to be comparing it to the debit column of the bank statement. And again, we're really only interested in the bank column in the cash book payments. We're not now interested in all of these other columns of a cash book payments. Now, as we said earlier, in theory, we would expect the bank statement and our records to be the same. But in practice, there are differences. There can be differences between what the bank has got and what we are showing. And these differences are divided into three main categories. And we refer to these differences as so-called awareness differences or reconciling entries. And if you want to follow alongside with me, you can look at pages 4 and 5 in your textbook. We divide then these awareness differences into three types of differences. The first are the so-called adjusting differences. Then we have timing differences. And lastly, there can be errors either made by the bank or by the business. And as I said earlier, if you want to look it up in your textbook, this is pages 4 and 5 of your textbook. Now let's begin by talking a little bit more about adjusting differences. So an adjusting difference then is the definition. That is a difference where the business is not yet aware of a transaction that has already been processed by the bank on the bank statement. What would be an example of these kinds of differences? It would be things like direct deposits, bank charges, either interest received or paid to the bank, debit orders, and stop orders. What is the action that we need to take for adjusting differences is we need to go and update either the cash book receipts or the cash book payments. Now remember, at the beginning, we said it's important that you must know your theory in this learning unit. Because if you don't know your theory and you don't know what is an adjusting difference or what would be an example of such a difference or how to correct these differences, you will also not be able to do the application questions. So here was that extract from our module outline, and you'll remember one of the two learning unit outcomes is to make sure you know your theory. And just another reminder is that theory and application really goes hand in hand. If you don't have the underlying knowledge, you are going to battle with the application questions. Now let's look at adjusting differences in an actual example. So on this side of the screen where I've used the red heading, this is now the bank statement that has been prepared by the bank for June 2026. On this side of the screen where I've used the blue, this is an extract of the two cash books. The top one is cash book receipts and the bottom one here is cash book payments. Now we're doing a comparison between our records, so these are the records of the business, and the record that was kept by the bank. And we're going to compare all of these transactions. So remember again, the transactions from cash book receipts, you are expecting to find them in the credit column, and the transactions from the cash book payments, you are expecting to find them in the debit column. So we're looking now for adjusting differences. So we are looking specifically for entries that is on the bank statements, but not yet in the cash books. So if you'll recall, what we're looking for is direct deposits, bank charges, interest, debit orders, and stop orders. So I've already done that comparison, and what I've done here on my bank statement, I've highlighted 4 entries, and these are all entries that's on the bank statement, but not yet in my 2 cash books. And if you want to, you can pause the video now and you can quickly double check and compare the cash books to the bank statement and see if you are agreeing with me. Now these 4 differences, we refer to them as adjusting differences, and the action that these differences require is that I need to add them into these 2 cash books because these 4 entries have not yet been recorded in the cash book. And if you remember from here, we said the action was that we're going to add it to the cash book. So just to recap, an adjusting difference, the definition, is where the business is not yet aware of a transaction recorded by the bank. The examples are the direct deposit, bank charges, the interest, the debit orders, and the stop orders. And the action from our side is to update our cash books. And again, you can look at pages 4 and 5 in your textbook for all of this information. So we're going to now take each of those 4 adjusting differences, and we're going to be updating the respective cash books with those differences. So the direct deposit will be added into the cash book receipts. So that's where we will update the direct deposit in the cash book receipts. And in your cash book payments, we're going to include the bank charges, the debit order, and the interest on the overdraft. The next thing we're going to be on the lookout for is timing differences. So what is the definition? A timing difference is now an entry that's been recorded in the cash books, but due to timing, it's not yet on the bank statement. So in this instance, it's the bank that is unaware that the business have recorded certain transactions. For timing differences, there are only 2 examples that qualify as timing differences. And these are outstanding deposits or outstanding payments, also known as outstanding EFTs. Just remember again that we have no longer got checks in South Africa, so all payments are now made via EFT. And what action is required for a timing difference? For timing differences, we are going to be updating the bank reconciliation statement. So once again, we've got our cash book receipts on this side, the bank statement on this side. We do the comparison between our records and the records of the bank. And this time around, we're trying to identify timing differences. So with other words, entries that we do have in the 2 cash books, but we can't trace them to the bank statement. In my example, there's 2 timing differences. There is one from cash book receipts. It's the deposit that we have recorded in the cash book receipts on the last day of the month, but if we look over here on the bank statement, we cannot find in the credit column a matching deposit. And in our cash book payments, we recorded an EFT payment again on the last day of the month, and if I come over to my bank statement, I do not find a matching EFT payment. So with other words, we're talking here about timing differences. They are, as you can see, in the cash books, but we were not able to find them on the bank statement. Per our definitions, what will be the action? The action is that we need to include these on the bank reconciliation statement for that month. So here is my bank reconciliation statement. And now I'm going to include these 2 timing differences on the statement. So that outstanding deposit will be added here on the bank statement, and the outstanding payment will be deducted from the bank reconciliation statement. So let's recap then. Our reconciling entries are also known as awareness differences, and we divide them into 3 main categories: adjusting differences. And adjusting differences, we are going to update either cash book receipts or cash book payments depending on the type of adjusting difference. The next category is our timing differences, and timing differences are always included on the bank reconciliation statement. And then the third category of possible reconciling items, these are errors. And when it comes to errors, we need to unpack that a little bit further. So when it comes to errors then, we first have to ask ourselves a question. We have to say who made the mistake and where was this particular mistake made. So if it was the business that made the mistake, so either in the cash book receipts or the cash book payments, then we have a second question to ask ourselves. Then we have to ask ourselves, is the amount that was recorded in the cash book understated, or is the amount recorded in the cash book overstated? If the amount was understated, in other words, the amount was too low or too small, then we're going to do the correction in the same cash book. Okay, have you all got that? And if the amount was overstated, with other words, in our cash book, we showed a much higher amount, then we're going to make the correction in the opposite cash book. I'm going to show you another slide just now where we're going to do examples, and I think that's going to help you a lot. Okay, so we said we're going to ask the question, who made the mistake? And it can either be the business that made the error, or it can in fact also be the bank that makes an error, and the error is then on the bank statement. So where will we correct these types of errors? These types of errors will be included on the bank reconciliation statement. Now let's look at a couple of examples of business errors. So here we've got the first one. An EFT was recorded as 1,700 rands in the cash book payments, but it should have been 7,100 rands. So with other words, we understated the EFT in our cash book payments, and that means then we're going to correct in the same cash book, and so the correction is going into cash book payments, but just look carefully, the correction is only the difference between the correct amount and the incorrect amount. Let's have a look at another example. We've once again got an EFT. This time around, in our cash book payments, we showed 5,400 rands instead of 4,500 rands. So this is an example where our amount was overstated. So where will I have to record this one? Do you know? This time around, we need to go to the opposite cash book and record it in the cash book receipts. So even though it is an EFT, the correction is made in cash book receipts, and once again, only the difference between the incorrect and correct amounts will be included in cash book receipts. I'm going to pause here for a moment, see if you know where will we correct deposit 11 and deposit 33. Okay, have you had a chance to think about these two deposits? So in the first one, we recorded it at 700 rands and not 7,000 rands. So our number is too low, meaning we're going to make the correction in the same cash book receipts. Where with deposit 33, our amount was too high, so we overstated the deposit, and therefore we need to go to the opposite cash book to make the correction. In your textbook, there is question 1.1, and this is a really excellent question to do some revision on your knowledge of the theory. In this question, we give a number of reconciling differences, and you have to identify them and say how did this difference arise and what will be the correct action. So if you have not yet completed question 1.1, I would recommend that you do this question, because it is a really nice test to see if you understand the different reconciling items. And to show you further, in 2025, so in last year's exam, there was a very similar question to this question 1.1 that was included in the exam paper for 15 marks. And here again, in last year's semester test 1, there was also a question, or rather not last year, the year before, also a theory question based around these reconciling differences. So I can't overstress the importance of knowing your theory for either a standalone question or then for your application style questions. Now that we've compared and updated the cash box, so here is now the updated cash book receipts, updated cash book payments with the two new totals. Now it is time for us to post those new totals into the general ledger bank account. And this general ledger bank account is exactly the same as what we showed you last semester when we did learning units 4 and 5. So remember, a general ledger account always starts with an opening balance, and a bank account can have either a credit opening balance or a debit opening balance. So you would just need to check in the question paper if it is a debit or a credit balance. Then we post these two new totals into the bank account, and remember, it's just the journal totals that goes into the general ledger account. So total receipts goes on the debit side, and don't forget your folio CBR, and the correct details is total receipts. And on the credit side, that's where we're going to post the total payments. Again, don't forget your folio CBP, and your correct details is total payments. Once you've posted in your new totals, then also remember to balance your account. And a properly balanced account has got a balance carried down as well as a balance brought down. When you now prepare your bank reconciliation statement, you will notice that the number here at the end of the bank reconciliation statement has to equal your balance on your general ledger bank account. So your number where you end your bank reconciliation statement, so with other words here where we say balance per bank account, we mean bank account in the general ledger, and these two totals must agree. So the balance on the general ledger bank account must be equal to your total of your bank reconciliation statement. And your bank reconciliation statement starts with your bank statement balance. Let's just look and see what to include on a bank reconciliation statement. So first up for this one, you must make sure you know the format. So we're not going to give you all of these details. We expect you to know that you're going to start your statement with the balance per bank statement. And this balance, if you can see on this side, it is the balance on the very, very last day of the month. Okay, so your balance per your bank statement, we're looking for the closing balance on the bank statement. So the one on, in this example, the 30th of June 2026. Then we're going to add our outstanding deposits. So outstanding deposits is always a plus. We're going to subtract our outstanding payments. Remember, these two are your timing differences. Outstanding payments are always minus. Outstanding deposits are always plus. And then we are going to correct any bank errors. Now, when it comes to bank errors, they can be plus or minus depending on the nature of the error. So you will just have to, again, read the question carefully to see, did the bank deduct too much from our account and they have to give us some money back, or do they still deduct more from our bank account? Okay, so for the bank errors, that will be dependent on the question, and it can be plus or minus. And then, as we said earlier, your last total on your bank reconciliation, this one then must agree to your balance per your bank account in the general ledger. And that is then your test to see if in fact you did reconcile the bank's balance to the balance that the business is showing. And how do we calculate this number here at the end? So you start with the balance per bank statement. And in this instance, it's minus 2,280 because it's a debit balance. Then you plus, in this example, the error. You always subtract the outstanding payments. You always add the outstanding deposits. And that's how you will calculate 2,720. If you want to, you can pause the video here and just quickly double check the math to see if you are able to arrive at 2,720. And then remember, the big test is if this number then equals your balance per the bank account in the general ledger. Also, just a little exam tip is in your bank reconciliation statements, you must clearly indicate if you're going to add or subtract an amount. If you don't show us the action in this statement, we will not be giving you the amount marks. So you must either say plus here or plus there. Here we've got less and we've got brackets or a minus, but we need to see clearly the action for each amount. I'm sure you remember this from first semester, but your key to success in the second semester is to practice as many questions as you possibly can. So if you want to practice some theory questions, there's 4 different questions in your textbook that you can attempt. So that question 1.1 I showed you earlier, and then also questions 1.5, 1.6, and 1.7. And then on the application side, there's also 4 questions that you can practice, questions 1.2, 3, 4, and 1.8. And just a quick reminder that when you look at the back of your Accounting 1B textbook, you will find the answers to all these questions. So even if you didn't cover them all in class with your lecturer, you do have access to all the correct answers at the back of the textbook. And also at the very, very back of the textbook, there's that Annexure B, where there's some more practice questions and solutions for you. Now, in class, your lecturer is only able to give you the building blocks. So in class, we give you the building blocks to answer any question. You just need to know how to apply these building blocks, and then you will be able to answer any question on this learning unit. So your building blocks in Learning Unit 1 is you must know the theory. And then the second important building block is you need to know the steps of the bank reconciliation process. That is a really key building block for you to answer any application style questions. Where can you look to find these steps? They're actually in 2 places in your textbook. If you look at example 1.1, you will find that this example has actually been done using 5 different steps. And they start with the step and then they show you what the step looks like with the information in the question. So this is a really good example to work through as part of your preparation. And then also in section 1.4 of the textbook, they provide you with 7 steps. They sort of overlap, so it is the same steps in both, but they've just structured them differently. So I would highly recommend that you make a mind map or an infographic for yourself of these steps, because they're really a key building blocks in helping you to answer any Learning Unit 1 question. If you want to, up on the screen here are the 7 steps, or rather the 6 steps that I always share with my students. And these 6 steps are really just a combination of the different steps in your textbook. So if you want to, you can take a screenshot of this page so that you also have access to these steps. And I've tried to make them quite complete by adding in examples of the adjusting and the timing differences and where you will go to make which correction. So as I said earlier, there are 4 application questions in your textbook. And questions 1, 2, 1, 4, and 1, 8, they're fairly similar in the way that the information was presented to you in the question. And these 3 questions are also really done in a way that shows you how the accountant or the bookkeeper of a business will actually encounter the information at month end and how they will actually go about to do the reconciliation. But when it comes to assessment questions, we can also rephrase the questions. So it's also important for you to have a look at other questions and other layouts in which we can still ask you a Learning Unit 1 question. And this question 1.3 is a really good question to look at, just to give you an idea of a different layout of a Learning Unit 1 question. But remember again, irrespective of how the information is presented to you in an assessment, you're always going to come back to your building blocks for Learning Unit 1. You're always going to come back to your theory, making sure that you know what is an adjusting difference, what is a timing difference, and how these should be addressed. And you're going to come back to your steps, either the steps that I've shown you or that your lecturer has given you, or if you've made your own steps from the textbook. If you use your theory coupled with your steps, you will see that you can really succeed at any application question, irrespective of how we phrase the question or irrespective of how we've set out the information. Just to give you an example of how I will use my steps to tackle one of these different type of questions. So in last year's semester test, question number 2 then, as you can see, they've presented the information for the Learning Unit 1 question a little bit different to that question 1.2, 1.4, 1.8 of the textbook. It is presented a little bit more like that question 1.3 of the textbook. But if we look at the required, they still want us to prepare the supplementary cash books, to do the bank account in the general ledger, and to do the bank reconciliation statement. So we are still able to use our building blocks, our theory, and our steps to answer this question. But before we jump in answering this question, if you want to, you can pause now and first try and tackle this question on your own and see if you are able to answer these 3 questions for 25 marks. So I would recommend you pause now, you get out some paper, pen, and a calculator, and you tackle this question and see if you are able to answer these 3 questions. And then once you've read through all the information and you were able to try the question, then start this video again and see if you agree with my solution. Now, if you were in the actual assessment, remember it's very important for you to be managing your time. So I also just need to talk to you a little bit about another building block to get you ready for the upcoming assessments. So we've said a theory is your foundational building block. Then you need to make sure you know your steps for your application type questions. But then there's also your exam techniques. And that is what you can do during your assessment that will also improve your chances of doing well in an assessment. And one of these exam techniques is to manage your time in an assessment. And what do we mean by that? We mean that you should take the marks allocated to a question. You must multiply it by 1.2, and that will tell you how much time are you allowed to spend on this question. Remember, in the upcoming semester test, you only have an hour to complete the test. And as you know, an hour can go by very, very quickly. So if you're not taking care and managing your time well, you can find that you have not completed all the test questions and your 60 minutes are up. So students, please make sure that you are making an effort to manage your time per question. So what you do is you take the marks allocated to the question, you multiply it by 1.2 because you've got 1.2 minutes within which to earn 1 mark. And so that will give you the overall time that you can spend on a particular question. Then the second big important tip for any assessment is to make sure you are reading your required with great care, and also all the additional information that's given to you in the question. So when you tackle a question, don't just think, oh, this is Learning Unit 1, I know what they're going to ask. It's the cash books and the bank account and the bank reconciliation. Make sure that you are reading what is really required, because you can see here in the 2024 test, they mix things up a little bit and they ask students to calculate the bank account balance. So not to do the bank account in the general ledger, but to actually make a calculation. Students, please make sure, we can't overstress this enough, that you must make sure you really understand what is being required of you, because obviously we will only give you marks for the answer if that is what we required from you in the question. Okay, so let's now circle back to this 2025 question. If you're back now with me in the recording, then I assume that you've now had a chance to try it on your own, or at the very least you've read through all of this information and you know now what this question is about. And as I said, I'm now going to show you how I would go about to answer an application question using my steps. Because always remember, steps equal marks. And if you are not systematic in the way that you're answering a question, it could mean that you're leaving out things. And then, of course, that will have a negative impact on your marks. Now, when they set the question out like this, in essence, what the examiner has done is they have already completed steps 1, 2, and 3 for us. So they have already done all the comparisons. So they have already compared the cash books to the bank statement. And now they give us a list of all the reconciling items. So in this kind of a layout, then we have not going to do steps 1, 2, and 3, because those steps the examiner has already completed for us. Where if you do a question 1.2 or a 1.4 or a 1.8, in those questions you are required to do all 6 of the steps. Now just let us refresh our memory. So we're now going to tackle, as we said, we're going to jump in here with step number 4. And step number 4 instructs us now to update our 2 cash books. Now let's just remind ourselves again, what are we going to be using when we update the cash books? So who can remember, if we're updating the cash books, what are we specifically looking for? We are looking for items on the bank statement, not in the cash books. Okay, and remember the accounting word for that is we are looking for adjusting differences. And in the cash book receipts specifically, we're going to include any direct deposits or interest on a favorable or credit bank balance. In the cash book payments, we are also going to update it with adjusting differences, but specifically bank charges, stop orders or debit orders, or interest on a debit balance or bank overdraft. And also included in the cash books will be the correction to any business errors. Okay, I'm going to pause here a moment just to give you a quick moment just to read through this again, just to make sure you've got your head around it. What are we going to include in our 2 cash books? Okay, so let's now prepare those 2 supplementary cash books for this 2025 question. And if you have completed it, you can now mark your answer against this particular slide. So I'm now talking, as I said, about step 4 of the different steps. So here is my cash book receipts. Remember to always begin your answer with your total before all of these extra adjusting items. So it's the total before any amendments, and you can see in this column over here, I've just told you if you go back to the question where to look to find each of these amounts. Then there was a direct deposit, and there was a correction of an error, and then I calculate my new total. And in an assessment, all of these count marks. So you get marks for putting in the total before amendments. You get marks for calculating that total. You get marks for showing us your workings. So remember, all these little details add towards your overall mark. Then in the cash book payments, again, I start with the number before any amendments. And here I include my debit order. I've got my bank charges and my interest on overdraft. And then I calculate the new total. So with other words, in my 2 supplementary cash books, I've got business errors like this one here for number 9, where we made a mistake on a deposit slip, and I've got the adjusting differences. That's the only entries that we are going to add into our 2 cash books: adjusting differences and business errors. And just a quick reminder, but I'm sure you all remember this from first semester, is we're always going to make sure we are showing our workings when we've made a calculation. So that then is what step number 4 looks like in a bank reconciliation question. Now let's go on to step number 5. And step number 5 says, now it's time to prepare the bank account in the general ledger. And to do that, we have to start with the opening balance, post the new updated totals, and balance the account. So this was where we ended off the question after step number 4. So here in step number 4, you'll remember we did our updated cash books with the new totals. Now it's time for us to prepare the bank account in the general ledger. And remember again, a bank account always begins with an opening balance, and the opening balance will be given to you in the question. Then we post the new totals from the 2 updated cash books, so the 2 new totals. And please remember your details: total receipts, total payments. Don't forget your folios: CBR for cash book receipts, CBP for cash book payments. And lastly, you are going to nicely balance your account with a balance carried down as well as a balance brought down. All of these carry marks in an assessment, so please don't leave any of this out, because that's going to cost you in marks. And that then is what step number 5 looks like in the bank reconciliation process. Okay, so now we have done step number 5. So the last step remaining to us is now it's time for us to prepare the current month's bank reconciliation statement. And that was question 2.2. So in this question, they actually asked you to do the reconciliation before you actually did the general ledger. So it was done a little bit in a different order, but essentially it was still steps 4, 5, and 6. Let's just remind ourselves again what goes into a bank reconciliation statement. Can you quickly just think through it and just make a note for yourself? Remember, into the bank reconciliation statement, now we're looking for items in the cash box, but not yet on the bank reconciliation statement. So, sorry, not yet on the bank statement. Let me just maybe go back. So on the bank reconciliation statement, we're looking for items in the cash books, not on the bank statement. And these kind of reconciling differences we refer to as timing differences. And remember, when it comes to timing differences, there's really only two. It's your outstanding deposits and your outstanding EFTs. Outstanding deposits you'll pick up from the cash book receipts, and outstanding payments or outstanding EFTs from your cash book payments. And then, of course, you are also going to be including any errors made by the bank. Only bank errors will go in your bank reconciliation statement. Okay, let's see what it looks like. So in our previous slide, we ended off with step number 5, where we prepared our bank account in the general ledger. And now it's time to do the bank reconciliation statement. Where do we start at the bank reconciliation statement? We always started with the balance per the bank statement on the very, very last day of that particular month. So in this question, you can find the information in note number 11. Then we subtract our outstanding EFTs, and that comes from note number 3. We add our outstanding deposits from note number 8, and then there was an error made by the bank. And remember, when it comes to the bank errors, it can be plus or minus. It will just depend on the particular error that's given to you in the assessment question. In this question, it's a minus, and it comes from note number 4 in the question paper. Then I add up all of these amounts. So I start, this one is plus, minus, 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 plus, 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 and it equals 569,596, which then also happens to be exactly the same amount as the closing balance on my bank account in the general ledger. And you'll see here next to it, we actually write that down and we call it the balance per the bank account in the general ledger. And once again, you see that these two are exactly the same, which means we've done our exercise 100% correct. So let's just recap again on step number 6. Remember to make sure that you know the layout of the bank reconciliation statement. So know where it starts, what gets included, and where to end the statement. And the first number you're always going to put on your bank reconciliation statement is the balance per bank statement on the last day of the month. And the last number that you're always going to have on your bank reconciliation statement is your balance per your general ledger bank account. You're going to show us the workings if you had to calculate any of the amounts, and you're not going to forget to show us clearly plus and minus. Students, so it's not only the minuses that you need to be showing, but also the pluses. Okay, so we need to see both clearly on your answer. And then, of course, only things that you will include on the bank reconciliation statement is your timing differences and bank errors. Okay, that brings us back to that question now that I posed at the start of this video. Are you now able to explain to your cousin why there would be a difference between her records and the bank balance that she's calculated and the balance that is showing on the banking app? And then lastly, as you're now preparing for the upcoming semester test, start then by memorizing and learning your theory for Learning Unit 1. And remember, that's pages 1 to 26 of your Accounting 1A textbook. Either do the questions you haven't done yet and also redo the questions that you did do in class with your lecturer. And then once you're in that test or exam venue, remember you will be managing your time. You're going to be reading your required with great care, and you are going to be showing all the workings.